You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 160. And today we're going to be talking about a proven formula to set goals that you actually achieve and exceed. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Hey, are you a thought leader, creative entrepreneur, or change maker and want to magnify your impact, boost influence while creating a financial abundance? Stay tuned for today's inspiring episode with your host, Melanie Benson.
Hello there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. This is the first episode of 2020. So if you're listening to this later, you may be well into the new year or next year even. And I want to talk about today goals. And I know a lot of people hear about goals. They set goals. They follow other people's goals. You may even heard of SMART goals. I actually found that how you set goals is very impactful to whether or not they actually get achieved. Many years ago, I was doing a presentation at a workshop at an event for entrepreneurs, and I was looking out into this audience. They had asked me to come in and do a talk on connecting the dots. How do you actually achieve all of the things that they were learning at this workshop? And I was talking about how people set goals. And I noticed a lot of people were scratching their head, and I could see some blank stares. And so I asked the audience, what is it that's missing? And what people were telling me is that they set goals, but somehow the goals stay on a piece of paper. They're in whatever that planner is, but they never actually can find the time to achieve goals. And so there was this inherent frustration with why do I keep setting goals and then not achieve them? So here's the interesting thing. There are neurons that fire in our brain based on the way we think and the way we act. And these neurons are connected to thought patterns, beliefs, emotions. And so we either have one of two things. We set goals and they excite us and inspire us and they're integrated and they get achieved. Or you set goals, they somehow dissolve into the background. They become this distant memory, and a lot of bright shiny objects and distractions and new ideas come in, and you never actually achieve the goals. So then at the end of the year, when all of the motion and all the conversation about setting goals for the new year come up, you sit down and you realize you didn't achieve any of your goals. And I believe that's because you're not using what I call the 4A formula. And these are 4 steps that when you use them, the goals become so integrated into who you are and what you're doing that you can't not achieve them. Now, I've studied neurolinguistic programming. I actually have a certification in using NLP, neurolinguistic programming, to help people achieve things they didn't believe were possible. And part of that is recoding your mindset, your belief system, so that you're a high performance individual. But part of this is simply some systems that any person on this planet can do right now to set goals that catapult revenue, that increase getting paid more, and actually elevate your impact and your influence this year. So you want to try it out? Cool, let's do it. I'm going to cover these 4 steps. And if this is calling you in and you're like, oh, I want more of this, and I'd like to learn more how to really up my game this year, I'm going to take this to another level around your revenue in a training I'm doing, a live workshop on this virtual. Anybody can come. To get your invitation to this, come join me in the Amplify Your Success Community. It's free right now at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. And I will make sure to send you an invitation to this live workshop we'll be doing later this month. Now, let's get into the 4A formula. The first A is aligned. Now, here's what I mean by aligned. I mean, it's actually a goal that is aligned with outcomes that you already know you want. See, what happens, I think, is people just think of these nice ideas They throw a goal out there because they see other people doing them. And then they are like, well, that goal never happened. And that's oftentimes because the goal really wasn't aligned. You may have heard the story before, but many years ago, I was coaching a man who wanted me to help him grow his revenue. He was really struggling with his cash flow, and he had a software company, great company. It was great what he did, but he kept setting goals and putting his attention on activities that had absolutely nothing to do with growing his business. And so, or it was very distant. So it was a distant, like it was going to take him months and months and months to recoup the value of the project. And the kind of the linchpin one day was when he showed up for our coaching and said, okay, Melanie, like, and I said, so how's the progress on the goal we set from the last time we talked? And he said, oh, I didn't do that. But what I did do is I became a co-host of a radio show. And I said, well, who's the audience? And they had nothing to do with the people he wanted to serve. Here's what was going on. His actual goals were not aligning with his true passions. We'll talk about that in a minute, and amplified, which is the next step. He was setting goals because he thought he should, instead of goals that were really aligned. And that was where the power comes from. That's where momentum comes from, because you know what your values and priorities are. Now, if you're part of the Amplify Mastermind, so hi, all the Amplify Mastermind members, we're going to be deep diving into this in our retreat this February, which is how to really understand your values and priorities. What I know about brain science is this: your values and your priorities are actually driving every decision you make. What happens, though, is when your values and priorities are not aligned with your goals, you're procrastinating, you're putting the brakes on, you're letting yourself get distracted, because you might value something, but if it's not a priority, meaning you might value wealth or prosperity, but if it's not integrated into your priorities, then you're probably setting goals for things that are nice and interesting, but you're not committed to. So brain science says that if you want to catapult your effort, if you want to actually achieve more than you know is possible, we have to integrate an outcome with an action. There has to be a line between those that you can get on board and move forward. That means you're excited about it, you're inspired, you want to do it. And that means you have to value the outcome. You don't have to value the process. This is where a lot of people get confused. You do not have to value the steps you take. You do have to prioritize them. So one of the ways in which I help my Amplify Mastermind members get this alignment is we supercharge and power up the outcome so that it's so much at stake. There's so much that they value in it that they can't not take action on it. It's very fun, very exciting, and it's very powerful. So if you notice that you procrastinate your goals that you're setting this year, chances are you haven't supercharged the outcome. It's not aligned enough with the actions and activities, and there's something missing with your values and priorities. And it may be in your blind spot. And that's really common because most of us have been doing this in a long enough time that we realize, oh, okay, great. I'm not really doing what I said I was going to do. There's always a solution. There's a way to break through that. So let's get to the step 2. And that's what I like to call amplified. And of course, Amplify Your Success. I like working with this word of amplified because amplified basically means that we take something and make it bigger. We make it have more impact. It has more reach. And one of the best ways to do this is to understand what your superpowers are. So I like to think of the things you do easily and effortlessly that other people need is a superpower. Now, here's what I found after coaching and mentoring people for 20 years, and I've definitely fallen into this trap, is that sometimes we get caught up in doing what other people are doing, and we forget what our own superpowers are. So I'll give you a couple hints, and this is a bigger conversation. We can't get through fleshing this all out today, but I will definitely be creating some podcast episodes on it. And again, to those of you in the Amplify Mastermind, we will be fleshing this out for you. Everybody has a unique profit amplifier, and that is a way in which you have the greatest impact and make the most profitable revenue in the process. And it's probably something that you do so easily, you don't even realize that you're doing it. So there's several ways you can leverage your superpowers. That's just one. But when you do that, what you should feel is excited, inspired, and expansive with a slight bit of anticipation or nervousness. Now, that nervousness is not bad. This nervousness is an energy of doing something you haven't done before. That rush of knowing that you're getting ready to accomplish things that have been felt so big and so exciting, but you haven't quite nailed them yet. So what we're looking for is this expansive energy versus a contracted energy. Now, contracted energy is you dread it, you hate it, you don't want to do it, you put it off, and there's a lot of it's like a heaviness. Like the idea of moving something forward feels so heavy and so dreary that you cannot find the inspiration. Now, I have a caveat to this. A lot of people stop when the contraction is there. Contraction means that something is out of alignment. So we have to go back to step one and figure out what's out of alignment. It doesn't mean it's not right for you. It means the way you're trying to do it is out of alignment. And that's where we have to come back to, and I think this is where coaching is really valuable, is we got to come back to, how are you approaching this goal? And is it aligned? I kind of want to also say something about following what others are doing blindly. So I've noticed there's a shortcut that people, especially people who have not hired a coach or are feeling financially that's something they cannot achieve, they cannot hire the coach they want, is they blindly follow strategies they see other people they admire doing. Here's the caution to that. You have absolutely no idea what's gone on inside of the strategy. You have absolutely no idea if it's really aligned. And to amplify, it has to be aligned. It has to have a clear connection between the goal and the activity and your aligned outcome. I had a client who did this. She was kind of falling into a little bit of some mindset stuff, and she wasn't showing up for the calls, and she was dragging a little bit, and she got into her head, like, I need to get some cash flow going. And she saw me do a very successful 5-day challenge online, my Own Your Bold Influence Challenge, which maybe you've participated in. But what happened was she did not flush it out. She didn't have the strategy right. She didn't have the marketing plan. She didn't have the pieces together. And the challenge she established had very little to do with the next step she wanted to give the people. And so it failed, and she spent a lot of money and time building something out that didn't work. That is often what happens when your project and your goal is exciting to you, but it's not aligned. It cannot amplify. Okay, so that's step 2, is amplify. We want to find that clear connection and flush it out so that it has its best chance of success. Now let's go on to step 3, and that's assimilate. So when you assimilate, you integrate your focus and your effort with the aligned actions. This goes back to that story I was telling you in the beginning, where that audience was kind of giving me the blind stare when we were talking about goals, because what I had started to talk about is how to create a plan, how to really prioritize their time and their energy and the things that will propel them and supercharge them the fastest. And what was happening was, in their minds, they're thinking, planning is not the thing I like to do. Like, I just want to be in action. Like, I feel like I'm wasting time if I'm planning, or I create a plan and then the plan is not in front of me. And that's because it's not assimilated. So assimilated basically means you're integrating the tasks you know you need to do into your systems for how you get things done. The biggest breakdown, this is the number one mistake people make that cost them the achievement of their goal, is the goal lives on some piece of paper somewhere and it has not been moved into your daily action plan. So if you are not having a daily action plan and you just react to what's in front of you, you are sacrificing time on your goals for fire drills and urgencies that you can't control, then you have not created a system to move your goals forward. And that's what's missing. That's the assimilation. Now, once you get that piece done, kind of the master level is you start reverse engineering the offers and the marketing activity, the places you speak, the podcast episode interviews you do, the social media, all of the things that you're doing to spread the word about your work. It is integrated towards the goal that you've set. And so if you've got a goal to hit a certain revenue, then we would want to reverse engineer, what are you going to offer and how are you going to market it and when is this going to happen? Now, I know for a lot of creatives and passion-driven people and people who built a business around their superpower, this is probably not your superpower. So I see you, I get it. That's why I designed my Profit Explosion Toolkit. It's very reasonable. It's a fraction of the investment to coach with me. So if you would like some help with this, I highly recommend you download my Profit Explosion Toolkit, profitexplosiontoolkit.com. If you'd like my help, there's an option there to book a session with me at a very exclusive rate. So check that out. But what I want you to do is start building up the muscle of assimilating the goal into your actions that you take. And if having a toolkit like that will help you, what I do is I basically show you how to reverse engineer what you're going to offer, when you're going to offer it, and what marketing activity will drive leads and buyers to those offers. And it helps you get centered with your goals that you've set for yourself. So I find that when I do this process, because I do it too, I put every client through this process, it helps you assimilate your focus so your actions are aligned and amplified. Now, last, and maybe even this is the first step, it's one of those chicken and the egg things. I don't know if it comes first or last, but you put it where you need it for you, as if. The last step is as if. And this is where the brain science really kicks in, because the as if step is basically writing goals and establishing goals as if they already are true. And what I notice a lot of people do is they say, well, I want to have this book written by December, but it doesn't feel real to them because it's way out there. And your brain doesn't know the difference between today and next year. The brain doesn't really know the difference between can and can't. What it hears is it basically it can amplify what you vibrationally feel is real for you. Now, as if has some layers, and again, this is a bigger conversation. There's more to this, but just for the sake of this exercise, I want you to practice establishing your goals as if they're already done. So if your goal is to write a book this year, you would basically say, it is now November 2020, or it's November 2025, whatever year, right? And it is, I am a best-selling author of the book, blah, blah, blah. And I know this to be true because I'm on stages talking about it. I've been booked for 25 podcast interviews and radio interviews and TV interviews. And I'm talking about the book and it's selling like crazy, right? That feels real. But when you say, like, I want to write a book this year, that's not a goal. That's a dream. And this, again, is how we start to train our brain to make the space in it to focus on goals and projects and tasks and activities that propel you forward. So that as if step gets tricky when you don't believe in it yet. And that means we have to go back to alignment. What's missing that would help it feel real to you? Sometimes we need support, or we don't know how, or we don't really know what it is 100% yet. And that's okay. It may not be the goal for this year. It may be a dream, and it's okay to capture the dreams, but don't like have this frustration and disappointment for dreams that don't come true. Dreams only come true when we transform them into a goal and use the 4A formula to align them, amplify them, assimilate them so you can take action, and as if. And as a matter of fact, we could actually add a fifth A to this, an action. So action does have to happen, because action is the difference between a dream and a goal. If you're not taking action, then it is a dream. And that's okay. Dreams are awesome. But if you want it to become real, you got to be taking action on it. So let's do that. Let's make it a 5A formula. We've just now improved the formula, right? So I want to hear more about your goals for this year. And if you were to start to integrate this 5A formula, what would be different? Like, how would you align it, amplify it, assimilate it, act as if, and take action with it? Let's talk about it in the Amplify Your Success Community. Remember, it's free right now at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. This is Melanie Benson, your host. Thanks so much for listening in today. If you want to catch up on any of the show notes and circle back on any of the resources we shared in today's show, head on over to the show page at amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. And remember, you amplify your results faster when you're in a community of other people who are moving and shaking. Join us at amplifyyoursuccesscommunity.com. One last thing. When you've gained insight from today's episode, help us share that and inspire other people by heading over to iTunes, subscribing, and give it a review. iTunes absolutely loves seeing these reviews pop up, and it actually helps boost my show's visibility. So I would be super grateful for your reviews. And as always, I love seeing your shares of these episodes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Come find me over there. Tag me in your shares. I'll give you some social media love right back. So see you next week for another inspiring episode of Amplify Your Success Podcast.